Terminology. During this section, we will be going over 3 fundamental definitions which will help us to understand Agile frameworks, methodologies, and Scrum Framework better. These definitions are process, methodology, and framework respectively. The word methodology is sometimes confused with other terms like process and framework. However, there are important distinctions between the 3. We will be describing these distinctions. First, we will be going over process. Process is simply a well-defined set of steps and decision points for executing specific tasks to convert inputs into outputs. Processes have predefined inputs, and based on these predefined inputs, with the help of enablers, these inputs are processed and outputs of the process are generated. For instance, a server administrator, a provisioning tool, or software are examples of enablers. And processes are controlled by procedures, metrics, governance, etc. For instance, if there is a time limit to generate an output for a process, these are monitored by control points. Let's see a process example. Payment process. Predefined inputs for this process can be ATM card of the customer and correct password entry of the customer to withdraw the money. Enablers of the payment process can be payment servers of the IT of the bank and databases which stores the customer's details, such as customer number, account info, and balance details, etc. And finally, if the steps were followed successfully, output of the process will be money withdrawal. And transaction times can be one of the control points for this process example. Can you wait for more than 10 minutes to withdraw money from the ATM? Of course no. Therefore, this process, as all other processes, must be monitored and controlled to find out problems and improvement areas to continuously improve. During this lecture, we have seen the definition of process and a process example, respectively. During the next lecture, I will be describing definition of methodology. Definition of methodology. Methodology is a structured set of methods, practices, processes, and procedures used to attain. The methodology is the general research strategy that outlines the way in which research is to be undertaken, and, among other things, identifies the methods to be used in it. These methods, described in the methodology, define the means or modes of data collection, or sometimes how a specific result is to be calculated. Methodology does not define specific methods, even though much attention is given to the nature and kinds of processes to be followed in a particular procedure or to attain an objective. So briefly, useful methods, generic and beneficial practices, and processes are used together with procedures under a methodology. For instance, it is better to give PMI's project management methodology as an example here. There are several processes under the project management methodology of PMI, and each process has inputs, tools and techniques, and respective outputs. Based on these processes, project management is achieved in a structured way. There are Methods under the PMI's project management methodology umbrella as well. These methods help to produce useful inputs to feed processes of the project management methodology generally. For instance, benefit to cost ratio and payback period methods are used to evaluate projects in an organization to select which projects to initiate. Benefit to cost ratio method analyzes the benefits that will come with the project against its costs, and payback period method analyzes how long it will take to earn back the investments made for the project. Techniques are also covered under the methodologies. Conflicts are inevitable in a project, and project management methodology of PMI proposes 6 common techniques for conflict resolution in a project. These are confronting, collaborating, compromising, smoothing, forcing, and withdrawal. Depending on the situation, appropriate conflict resolution technique is applied respectively. Processes, methods, and techniques are only some aspects of a methodology. There can be several other aspects supporting a methodology to deliver a successful result. During this lecture, I described the methodology, and we have gone over processes, methods, and techniques aspects of the PMI's project management methodology. During the next lecture, I will be describing framework. Definition of framework. Framework is a guideline describing roles and rules upon principles that help and facilitate people in a low prescriptive way. So, frameworks describes the general structure or path of how to do something. But it does not include every single step that needs to be followed. If you are adopting a framework in your work, you must follow its principles, roles, and rules. But you are free to apply your own practices if there is not any predefined rule or way on that particular step. By this way, frameworks leave room for the practitioners to select their own way when completing the work. So, in case of a similar or even same situation, 2 practitioners of the framework can apply 2 different practices, or can use different tools and techniques. This flexibility will help frameworks to evolve and improve best practices that can be applied in different circumstances. Framework can define the stages that you should go through, but does not go into the details of how you are going to do that stage. For instance, Project Management Body of Knowledge Framework is one of the most popular project management frameworks for managing waterfall projects. It describes a project in 5 fundamental phases: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling and closing. There are several processes, tools, and techniques under these phases that help project managers to manage a project successfully. But of course, there will be several unique and different cases in projects that the project managers must overcome. While PMBOK describes the general rules and principles, project managers use their practices under these rules and principles to manage the projects. During this lecture, we have seen the definition of framework, an example of a framework. During the next lecture, I will be describing the interrelationships of frameworks, methodologies, and processes. Interrelationships of framework, methodology, and process. During the previous lectures, we have seen the definitions and examples of frameworks, methodologies, and processes. Now, we will see how they are interrelated with each other. Principles are the ground of the interrelationship between frameworks, methodology, and process. Principles or rules define musts of doing a work or activity. There is not a waive option for these principles. Based on determined principles, frameworks are structured. Note that, as we described earlier, although the frameworks describe the principles and certain rules, there is a freedom on the practitioners to draw their own way on the circumstances they face. By this way, practices are evolved and improvements in practical implications are ensured under the framework. Frameworks are supported by the methodologies. Methodologies describe methods, processes, tools, and procedures to follow to reach success when doing something. And on the tip of this interrelationship pyramid, processes take their place under the methodologies. Processes have predefined inputs and enablers, such as resources, tools, etc., to deliver an output based on the provided inputs. It will be perfect to make an analogy of this pyramid to existing principles, frameworks, methodologies, and processes. As you see, the bottom of the pyramid is Agile principles. Agile principles describe the must actions or steps that need to be followed. And on top of Agile principles, Scrum Framework is one of the frameworks structured using Agile principles. Note that there is a confusion in the market, and many professionals think that the Agile and Scrum is the same thing. Actually, they are not the same thing. Agile principles describe the rules of the Agile philosophy, and Scrum Framework is one of the most popular out of many other frameworks and methodologies using Agile principles. Scrum Framework applies the project management methodologies, and these methodologies include processes like time management, scope management, budget management, etc. During this lecture, we have seen the interrelationships of framework, methodology, and process. We also saw an analogy of this interrelationship from Scrum Framework example. During the next section, we will be going over Agile. Agile. Agile means able to move quickly and easily, by dictionary meaning. Conventional project management methodologies, like waterfall, were dividing a project into major phases like analysis, design, development, test, and deployment. However, these conventional project management methods were not adaptive enough to welcome changes. Think of a long-lasting software project that will finish in 2 years. Conventional project management methodologies propose to finish all analysis first and then design and develop the software in sequence. However, during design and development, when a new customer request comes, analysis must be done for the request, and revision of the rest of the tasks should be done from the beginning to adopt the changes. This causes loss of time. And even worse than this, until testing starts, customer does not see the delivery of the project, and this brings a high risk since lots of effort is spent still testing phase. Because the customer can come with new requests, or its requests might change over time during the project based on the marketplace conditions or other circumstances. Inspiring from the dictionary meaning, and in order to be able to adopt changes and new requests of the customer, Agile project management methodologies have been evolved and used especially for software development. Agile project management is characterized by the division of tasks into short phases of work and frequent reassessment and adaptation of plans. Now, let's see initiation and evolution history of Agile project management methodologies. Particularly in 1990s, some developers reacted against traditional heavyweight software development methodologies. Because the conventional project management methodologies were not welcoming the changes, and this was causing lots of rework after the product is presented to the customer. And in software development, it is a crucial step to present the customer a prototype, get the feedbacks, and reevaluate the remaining tasks and plans respectively. Conventional project management methodologies like waterfall methodology was not enabling this flexibility, and each change was causing lots of rework and loss of time. New approaches were being developed and tested, like extreme programming, which is abbreviated as XP, or feature-driven development, which is abbreviated as FDD. These approaches, generally termed light processes. We will be seeing details of extreme programming in our further lectures, but it is better to describe feature-driven development a bit at this stage. Feature-driven development, or FDD, is a client-centric, architecture-centric, and pragmatic software process. As the name implies, features are an important aspect of FDD. A feature is a small, client-valued function expressed in the form action, result, object. For example, calculate the total of a sale, validate the password of a user, and authorize the sales transaction of a customer. Features are to FDD as use cases are to the Rational Unified Process, or RUP, and user stories are to Scrum. They're a primary source of requirements and the primary input into your planning efforts. So briefly, instead of heavy analysis phase, software development is done based on deliverable features to the customer in feature-driven development, and as soon as a meaningful feature is ready, it is presented for the test of customer to get the feedbacks and plan the remaining features respectively. Representatives from several of these approaches got together in Utah in 2001 to develop a more adaptive project management methodology, mainly for software development. These representatives settled on the term Agile, called themselves the Agile Alliance, and developed a manifesto and a statement of principles. We will see the Agile principles and Agile manifesto in detail in our further lectures. Note that Agile isn't a set of tools or a single methodology, but a philosophy put to paper in 2001 with an initial 17 signatories. So, Agile philosophy signed on 2001 does not propose or force steps of processes to follow a project. Agile was a significant departure from the heavyweight document-driven software development methodologies towards the more flexible and change-welcoming methodologies. These new methods attempt a useful compromise between no process and too much process, providing just enough process to gain a reasonable payoff. Conventional project management methodologies were including lots of processes, and in each new customer request or change, these processes were rerun to adapt this new change into the project plan. This was causing loss of time, lots of rework, and customer dissatisfaction respectively. However, this does not mean that processes are useless. Agile focuses on only necessary and enough processes to welcome the changes easily and adopt to the project respectively. We have seen so far how the Agile philosophy was born and weaknesses of conventional project management methodologies. There are two fundamental aspects of Agile philosophy that differs it from the conventional project management methodologies. The first one is, Agile methods are adaptive rather than predictive. This means Agile methods are more flexible and easily adopts the changes and new requests of the customer to the project. Also, working small features or parts are aimed to be delivered to the customer in Agile methods to get the feedbacks of the customer earlier to incorporate changes or requests before spending lots of efforts to a whole application or software. However, conventional project management methods were predictive. For instance, analysis phase aims to document and write down all features and scenarios of the whole application before seeing how small components will work. The second fundamental aspect of the Agile philosophy that differs from the conventional project management methodologies is, Agile methods are people-oriented rather than process-oriented. Agile methods focus on people and respectively on the deliverable features or parts of the software. However, conventional project management methodologies follow sets of processes to follow in order to complete each phase of the project. During this lecture, we have seen the birth of Agile and how it differs from the conventional project management methodologies. During the next lecture, I will be describing the Agile principles. Agile Manifesto. As we described already in our previous lectures, in 2001, 17 individuals gathered in Utah to find common ground around Agile. These individuals agreed and signed off 4 common values that led to the development of the Agile Manifesto. Agile Manifesto states that we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others to do it. Through this work, we have come to value, first, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Second, working software over comprehensive documentation. Third, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Fourth and the last, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. This is the Agile Manifesto and its 4 values. Scrum is an Agile framework, therefore it is consistent with the Agile Manifesto as well. We will be going over each value in detail now. First value, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Scrum is a team-based approach to delivering value to the business. Team members work together to achieve a shared business goal. The Scrum Framework promotes effective interaction between team members so the team delivers value to the business. Once the team gets a business goal, it figures out how to do the work, does the work, identifies what's getting in its way, takes responsibility to resolve all the difficulties within its scope, and works with other parts of the organization to resolve concerns outside their control. This focus on team responsibility in Scrum is critical. However, in conventional project management methodologies, focus was on processes and tools. In order to move forward in a project, you had to complete inputs of a process and get the outputs. These several processes were producing the major output of the projects. Second value, working software over comprehensive documentation. Scrum requires a working, finished product increment as the primary result of every sprint. Whatever activities take place during the sprint, the focus is on the creation of the product increment. A Scrum team's goal is to produce a product increment every sprint. The increment may not yet include enough functionality for the business to decide to ship it, but the team's job is to ensure the functionality present is of shippable quality. However, in conventional project management methodologies, all functionality and requirements of the product was written in analysis or feature description documents, and approval of the customer was acquired in each update. Customer was seeing the end product of the project towards the end of the project instead of regular working software in periodic cycles. Third value, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Scrum is a framework designed to promote and facilitate collaboration. Team members collaborate with each other to find the best way to build and deliver the software or other deliverables to the business. The team, especially the product owner, collaborates with stakeholders to inspect and adapt the product vision so the product will be as valuable as possible. However, in conventional project management methodologies, requirements of the customer are documented in the contract, and whenever the customer requires a change, the contract needs to be updated as well. Fourth value, responding to change over following a plan. Scrum teams make frequent plans. For starters, they plan the current sprint. In addition, many teams create longer-term plans, such as release plans and product roadmaps. These plans help the team and the business make decisions. However, the team's goal is not to blindly follow the plan. The goal is to create value and embrace change. In essence, the thought process and ideas necessary for planning are more important than the plan itself. A plan created early is based on less information than will be available in the future, so naturally, it may not be the best plan. As new information is discovered, the team updates the product backlog. That means the direction of the product likely shifts. This continuous planning improves the team's chances of success as it incorporates new knowledge into the experience. Scrum teams constantly respond to change so that the best possible outcome can be achieved. Scrum can be described as a framework of feedback loops, allowing the team to constantly inspect and adapt so the product delivers maximum value. However, in conventional project management methodologies, generally, a waterfall plan is done in the beginning. First analysis starts, then design follows, and then software development starts. However, making big plans before seeing the first outputs in these conventional methodologies were a nightmare, and each change in the plan was bringing a massive effort to rework on already completed tasks, replan the remaining works, get the approval of the customer, etc. But Agile methodology enables to see working software, and customers can alter their requirements based on the incremental deliveries at the end of each sprint. This minimizes rework, loss of effort, and doing long-term plans with little information. During this lecture, I described the Agile Manifesto, and we have gone over each value of the Agile Manifesto respectively. During the next lecture, I will be describing the Agile principles. Agile principles. We have seen the 4 values of Agile Manifesto in our previous lecture. Agile Manifesto follows and relies on 12 Agile principles. During this lecture, we will be going over each Agile principle and describe respectively. The first Agile principle is, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Agile methodologies aim to produce working deliverables as early as possible, and by this way, customer collaboration is ensured through the project progress. Because in heavyweight software development methodologies, customers were waiting for a long time to first completion of the analysis, then completion of design, and even till late phases of the development. This was causing customer to see the product at very late phase to provide feedback. Therefore, new requirements or changes in the scope were causing lots of rework respectively. With this principle, Agile methodologies purpose to provide continuous delivery for the customer to get feedback and minimize the possibility of loss of effort and reworks. The second Agile principle is, welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. Traditional project management methodologies were sticking to a rigid scope, and accepting changes were causing lots of rework, both in project deliverables and also in replanning. And this was one of the biggest factors of customer dissatisfaction. However, this Agile principle enables to welcome changes and provides flexibility for the customer to direct the product progress during project. And this increases the customer satisfaction respectively. Third Agile principle is, deliver working software frequently, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, with a preference to the shorter timescale. Heavyweight software development methodologies were waiting to finish analysis and design phases to start development, and this was causing a long time for the customer to see the output of the project. Agile methodologies aim to produce working software frequently, both to get the feedback of the customer and to present the customer that the project is producing outputs progressively. The fourth Agile principle is, business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. With the help of this principle, business people who know the business needs and developers who work on the requirements and create software are brought together. This ensures the constant communication and helps to fulfill the gaps faster and improves the understanding. However, in conventional project management methodologies, business was writing its requirements and analysis and design were done mostly in an isolated way by the analysts and developers, and approval of the business stakeholders was acquired over written documents. But this was causing misunderstandings, since all details could not be detailed in documents most of the time, and fulfilling the gaps was taking time. Fifth Agile principle is: build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and the support they need, and trust them to get the job done. In Agile teams, every team member can do every task. Analysis, development, and test activities can be done by any of the team members. Here, the crucial thing is building an Agile team with motivated individuals. Project environment is provided to the Agile teams and support they need is given. Then, it is expected to get outputs from the Agile team. All you need to do is trust them after this point. However, in traditional project management methodologies, project managers and functional managers assign activities. Each activity can be done by only a specific role. For instance, test is done by test engineers, analysis is done by analysts, and development is done by software engineers. And project manager always monitors, controls, and pushes the team and other stakeholders to complete the project on time and on budget. The sixth Agile principle is: the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. Agile methodologies encourage to communicate face-to-face with the Agile team, because face-to-face communication ensures effective and efficient communication better compared to other communication methods, and this helps to reduce ambiguity. However, in conventional project management methodologies, team members working on the project were working separately usually, and even some team members were working in a different office, city, or even in a different country. The seventh Agile principle is: working software is the primary measure of progress. One of the main purposes of Agile methodologies is a testable and working part of the software is presented for the customer. By this way, customer collaboration is ensured, and this helps to reduce reworks and deviations from the customer's requirements. Therefore, customer satisfaction becomes more probable. However, in conventional project management methodologies, depending on the size of the project, it was taking months, even a year, to present a working software for the customer. The eighth Agile principle is: Agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. Agile teams aim to deliver the same amount of work over a period. For instance, 100 units of work aim to be completed in each month. And to enable this constant speed of delivery, sponsors, developers, and users must support the development environment. The ninth Agile principle is: continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Success of a project and customer satisfaction depends on the quality of the project deliverables mainly, and the fundamentals of a successful delivery rely on technical aspects of the deliverables and design mainly. Therefore, Agile methodologies focus on technical excellence and good design. The 10th Agile principle is simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. Main purpose of the Agile methodologies is collaborating with the customer during development, and by this way reducing reworks, ambiguities, and preventing the unnecessary works to be done. The 11th Agile principle is: the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. Agile methodologies encourage the self-organization of the teams. Based on the capabilities and competencies of the team members, team organizes itself to produce the best architecture and design. However, in conventional project management methodologies, roles and activities of each team member were assigned by the managers. The 12th and last Agile principle is, at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. Always, there is a room for improvement and doing things better in a project team. Agile teams come together based on predetermined intervals and discuss the lessons learned from their past work. And as a result of these discussions, teams aim to identify improvement areas to produce better outputs in further deliveries. During this lecture, I described the 12 Agile principles. During the next lecture, I will be describing the need for Agile. Need for Agile. During our previous lectures, we have seen how Agile methodologies heal the weaknesses of the conventional project management methodologies. During this lecture, we will be going over the major reason of why there is a need for Agile. In the past, requirements and technology, which enables us to deliver projects, were changing much slower compared to today. Therefore, requirements defined and agreed with the customer at the beginning of the project were still valid, or most of these requirements were still valid throughout the project. There might have been slight changes in requirements, but these changes or updates were not causing lots of rework or waste of time. Briefly, planning of the project was much more predictable. However, with the evolving and ever-changing and improving capabilities in technology, together with the changing requirements of the customer throughout the project due to harsher competition in the market made the projects more chaotic. This means a requirement coming from the customer might not be a valid requirement after 6 months, or a technology you were using to deliver your project might be advanced 3 months later, which will enable you to deliver your project faster. Therefore, conventional project management methodologies, which were getting all the requirements of the customer and planning a project from the beginning till the end, started to not respond to this faster change in technology and requirements. If you consider a 1-year project in conventional project management methodologies, the first step is requirements analysis. At this step, customers' requirements for the project are gathered, evaluated, and finalized. Upon completing requirements analysis phase, design phase starts. At this stage, based on the analysis, technical design of the software and applications are done by the software engineers and software architects. Infrastructure, technology, services, tools, and more that will be used in the project are designed at this stage. And then, software development starts. This is the main phase of the project, where the end product is developed, and requirements of the customer are mapped in the product of the project. And then, integration starts. Developed software might need to be integrated with other applications or software to get inputs or provide outputs. These connections are done during integration phase of the project. And finally, testing phase starts. This is the stage where the customer starts to see the product and checks whether their requirements are satisfied in the product of the project. And this happens 7 months later after the customer's requirements have been finalized for this example project schedule. And during this time, the customer does not see how the product is developed. New requirements might be needed during this time, or changes to existing requirements can be possible. Or even some of the requirements might not be valid anymore due to changing market or business conditions. In an ever-changing world, especially in software development projects, this was bringing a very big risk and cost in case customer comes with new requirements or changes in existing requirements. And after testing, if the requirements are mapped in the project delivery, and if customer agrees with the delivery, deployment takes place. Deployment means developed software or application is provided for the use of the end customer. Agile methodologies aim to follow these phases in shorter terms to provide a working software all the time to be able to present and collaborate the customer to the project. By this way, the customer sees the progress of the project frequently, and if the requirements are changing or if a requirement is invalidated, this does not bring a big effort or rework, since the customer is always involved and also sees a working part of its requirement throughout the project. So briefly, analysis, design, development, integration, testing, and deployment are still done in Agile methodologies, but these are done in a predetermined interval to provide progressive working software throughout the project to eliminate any kind of rework or cost and increase customer satisfaction. During this lecture, I described the need for Agile. During the next lecture, I will be describing common misconceptions about Agile. Common misconceptions about Agile. Agile methodologies evolved mainly to overcome the weaknesses of heavyweight development methodologies and conventional project management methodologies, as we have seen already. Conventional project management methodologies were involving processes to follow, long-lasting phases to proceed to next phase, and excessive efforts for planning the future with little information in the beginning. This caused the emerging Agile methodologies to be understood in a wrong way by some people, that Agile does not follow a path, does not need any documentation or planning. This is the biggest misconception about Agile. Let me tell you a story from my experience about Agile misconception. We were in a meeting with one of our customers. Customer told about the project with a very little information about scope, and the senior director of the project, he was also the sponsor, told that, "We have to deliver this project in 4 months. Therefore, we will do Agile Project Management." Considering that the senior director saying this was managing the technology group of a corporate and well-known organization which has more than 10,000 employees, size and context of the Agile misconception is big in the market. We will be going over the common misconceptions about Agile one by one during this lecture. First common misconception about Agile. Agile is not a silver bullet solution. Conflicts and requirements, conflicts between stakeholders, technical problems, resource management issues, and more will still exist in Agile methodologies as well. We shouldn't expect that all the problems that were occurring in conventional project management methodologies will not happen anymore if we adopt Agile methodologies. Second common misconception about Agile. Agile is not an excuse for poor requirement definition. Agile methodologies aim to reduce the comprehensive documentation, unlike conventional project management methodologies. But this does not mean that the requirements will be defined less. Therefore, adapting Agile methodology should not be seen as an excuse for poor requirement definition. The third common misconception about Agile. Agile is not about failure to control the scope, it is about managed change. Since customers sees the progressive output of the project in Agile methodologies, and refine its requirement based on the progression of the product of the project, there is a misconception about Agile that it is a failure to control the scope. However, this eliminates to-do unnecessary work, reduces rework and cost in projects. Therefore, Agile is more about managed change. The fourth misconception about Agile. Agile is not an excuse for poor design. In conventional project management methodologies, after analysis, an explicit time is reserved for design to work and think about the design of the software or application. In Agile methodologies, there is a limited time to deliver increment and working software for the customer. And if design problems occur in the project, adapting Agile methodology should not be the excuse of this. The fifth misconception about Agile. Agile is not an excuse for reducing quality. Agile methodologies deliver incremental and working software in predetermined intervals for the test of the customer. Since there is a time pressure to meet fixed amount of work in this interval, reducing quality should not be an excuse. The sixth misconception about Agile. Agile is not doing more with fewer resources. If there is a development activity that will take 10 days to complete with a determined resource, Agile methodologies will not shorten this duration. But there is a misconception in Agile that more work is done with fewer resources. The seventh and last misconception about Agile I will be listing here is, Agile is not unstructured. Many people think that in Agile, software developers just do coding without other interactions. However, analysis, design, development, integration, testing, and deployment happens in each predetermined delivery interval in Agile as well. So, Agile is structured. During this lecture, we have seen the common misconceptions about Agile methodologies. During the next lecture, I will be describing Agile frameworks and methodologies. Agile frameworks and methodologies. Agile is not a methodology itself. It is an umbrella term that describes several methodologies. But these Agile methodologies are evolved from the base of Agile manifesto and principles. This is important because many people think that Agile itself is a project management methodology. Even I was thinking that Agile and Scrum are the same things till I dive into the Agile world. However, Scrum is the most popular and the most used Agile framework in the world. The most popular and known Agile methodologies and frameworks are Scrum Framework, Extreme Programming, which is abbreviated as XP, Lean, Kanban, Rational Unified Process, which is abbreviated as RUP, Crystal, Dynamic Systems Development Method, which is abbreviated as DSDM, and Feature-Driven Development, which is abbreviated as FDD. Each year, an Agile survey is conducted globally. Based on the latest stage of Agile survey, Scrum Framework is the most used Agile methodology in organizations around the world. Therefore, from our next section onwards, this course will focus on the Scrum Framework. Also, strong aspects of the different Agile methodologies can be combined in Agile Project Management as well. For instance, as seen in the figure, Scrum or XP Hybrid is the second most popular Agile methodology by 10% used by the organizations, which uses the practices of Scrum Framework and Extreme Programming. Scrumban is used by 6% of the organizations, and uses the aspects of Scrum Framework and Kanban. We will see the practices of these hybrid methodologies briefly after we completed the Scrum Framework section. The most popular Agile frameworks and methodologies will be described in this course. Scrum Framework is the main focus of this course and will be covered in detail from the next section onwards. Extreme Programming, Lean, and Kanban will be described briefly in the following lectures to give you an insight. During this lecture, I described the Agile methodologies and frameworks and their popularity across the organizations around the world. During the next lecture, I will be describing Extreme Programming, XP methodology. Extreme Programming. Extreme Programming is one of the several popular Agile processes. It has already been proven to be very successful at many companies of all different sizes and industries worldwide. XP includes some management elements, but emphasizes technical practices more, and is therefore more of an Agile engineering methodology. Instead of delivering everything you could possibly want on some date far in the future, this process delivers the software you need as you need it. Extreme Programming empowers your developers to confidently respond to changing customer requirements, even late in the lifecycle. In XP, the customer works very closely with the development team to define and prioritize granular units of functionality, referred to as user stories. Extreme programming emphasizes teamwork. Managers, customers, and developers are all equal partners in a collaborative team. Extreme programming implements a simple yet effective environment, enabling teams to become highly productive. The team self-organizes around the problem to solve it as efficiently as possible. The development team estimates, plans, and delivers user stories in the form of working, tested software on an iteration-by-iteration basis, typically every 1 to 3 weeks. First, unfinished features are evaluated, and the most important features are selected for the next delivery. Project team aims to deliver a working software at a constant velocity and comes together each day to review status and risks. Customer is available whenever needed, and this increases the collaboration and reduces the ambiguity regarding requirements. Extreme programming is based on 5 simple values. The first value is simplicity. Simplicity emphasizes that we will do what is needed and asked for, but no more. This will maximize the value created for the investment made to date. We will take small, simple steps to our goal and mitigate failures as they happen. We will create something we are proud of and maintain it long-term for reasonable costs. The second value is communication. Communication emphasizes that everyone is part of the team, and we communicate face-to-face daily. We will work together on everything from requirements to code. We will create the best solution to our problem that we can together. The third value is feedback. Feedback emphasizes that we will take every iteration commitment seriously by delivering working software. We demonstrate our software early and often, then listen carefully and make any changes needed. We will talk about the project and adapt our process to it, not the other way around. The fourth value is respect. Respect emphasizes that everyone gives and feels the respect they deserve as a valued team member. Everyone contributes value, even if it's simply enthusiasm. Developers respect the expertise of the customers and vice versa. Management respects our right to accept responsibility and receive authority over our own work. The fifth and last value is courage. Courage emphasizes that we will tell the truth about progress and estimates. We don't document excuses for failure because we plan to succeed. We don't fear anything because no one ever works alone. We will adapt to changes whenever they happen. There are 12 core practices of extreme programming grouped into 4 categories. Fine-scale feedback category has 4 practices. These are test-driven development, planning game, whole team, and pair programming. Continuous process rather than batch category has 3 practices. These are continuous integration, design improvement, and small releases. The shared understanding category has 4 practices. These are simple design, system metaphor, collective code ownership, and coding standard or coding conventions. And programmer welfare category has 1 practice, and this is sustainable pace. I will not be going over these practices in detail since the main objective of this course is not extreme programming. But if you would like to learn more about XP, you can find various resources on the web. During this lecture, I described the extreme programming methodology. During the next lecture, I will be describing lean methodology. Lean. Lean is an iterative agile methodology which owes much of its principles and practices to the lean manufacturing approach, also known as just-in-time production, and pioneered by Toyota. Lean software development is founded on the understanding that the principles of lean manufacturing and product development methods can apply to software development. Of course, the practices are different, but the mindset, the way of thinking, is the same. Lean software development is based on the notions of eliminating waste, any effort that is not of value to the customer, optimizing the whole, going from concept to cash, delivering fast, building quality in, respecting people, improving relentlessly, and deferring commitment until you know what you need to do. 7 principles of lean software development methodology are: 1. Eliminating waste. 2. Amplifying learning. 3. Deciding as late as possible. 4. Delivering as fast as possible. 5. Empowering the team. 6. Building integrity in. And 7. Seeing the whole. Lean software development is useful to provide insights into how to solve problems both inside and outside of the development organization. Its model of flow, focusing on fewer, smaller things in your development pipeline to get value delivered quickly, suggests that one way to improve your software development value stream is to avoid overloading your development teams. When you consider how many development teams seem to thrash because they are doing too many things at once, you may intuitively get this concept. During this lecture, I described the lean software development methodology briefly. During the next lecture, I will be describing Kanban. Kanban. The name Kanban originates from Japanese and means roughly a signboard or billboard. From Agile methodology point of view, Kanban is an Agile methodology for managing the creation of products with an emphasis on continual delivery while not overburdening the team. Kanban is a new technique for managing a software development process in a highly efficient way. Kanban underpins Toyota's just-in-time or JIT production system. Although producing software is a creative activity and therefore different to mass-producing cars, the underlying mechanism for managing the production line can still be applied. Kanban methodology proposes that a software development process can be thought of as a pipeline, with feature requests entering one end and improved software emerging from the other end. A bottleneck in a pipeline restricts flow. The throughput of the pipeline as a whole is limited to the throughput of the bottleneck. Let's describe Kanban over an example scenario using our development pipeline. Let's consider that analysis of 10 items are completed per week by the team, and these 10 items are developed per week by the team respectively. But 5 items can be tested by the team per week. This means 5 items will not be tested and delivered. The throughput of the team will be 5 items per week, because the testers are acting as a bottleneck in this scenario. If the analysts and developers aren't aware that the testers are the bottleneck, then a backlog of work will begin to pile up in front of the testers. The effect is that lead times go up, and, like warehouse stock, work sitting in the pipeline ties up investment, creates distance from the market, and drops in value as time goes by. Inevitably, quality suffers. To keep up, the testers start to cut corners. The resulting bugs released into production cause problems for the users and waste future pipeline capacity. If, on the other hand, we knew where the bottleneck was, we could redeploy resources to help relieve it. For example, the analysts could help with testing, and the developers could work on test automation. But how do we know where the bottleneck is in any given process, and what happens when it moves? Kanban reveals bottlenecks dynamically. Kanban is incredibly simple, but at the same time incredibly powerful. In its simplest incarnation, a Kanban system consists of a big board on the wall with cards or sticky notes placed in columns with numbers at the top. The cards represent work items as they flow through the development process represented by the columns. The numbers at the top of each column are limits on the number of cards allowed in each column. The limits are the critical difference between a Kanban board and any other visual storyboard. Limiting the amount of work in progress, abbreviated as WIP, at each step in the process, prevents overproduction and reveals bottlenecks dynamically so that you can address them before they get out of hand. There are 3 basic practices of the Kanban. These are: visualize what you do today. Seeing all items in context of each other can be very informative. Kanban board is for this purpose actually. All works that are in progress and done and waiting for the next step to be processed are visualized in the board. Limit the amount of work in progress. This helps balancing the flow-based approach so teams don't start and commit too much work at once. Otherwise, too much work will overburden the team, and this will cause quality to decrease respectively. Enhance flow. When something is finished, the next highest thing from the backlog is pulled into play. Where there is a room for analyzing, developing, testing, and deploying a new item in the software development pipeline, the most important feature from the backlog is pulled into service development pipeline until all features of the project are finished. During this lecture, I described the Kanban. This was the last lecture of this section. During the next section, we will be going over Scrum Framework.